This presentation is on Katherine Paterson. Miss Paterson was born in Qingqing, China on October 31st, 1932. Her parents were Christian missionaries and her father was a principal at Sutton 690, a school for girls, and traveled throughout China as part of his missionary duties. The Womodar family lived in China until Miss Paterson was 8 years old. The family was forced to leave the country during the Japanese invasion of 1937. They moved to Richmond, Virginia for a short while before returning to China to live in Shanghai. In 1940, the family was forced to leave again, and this time they moved to North Carolina. During 1937 and 1950, Katherine Paterson and her family moved 13 times because of their missionary work and the war. Due to the moves, Miss Paterson was always a new kid and never fit in very well. She believed it was because of her British accent and her second-hand clothing. She never made any new friends and spent her time alone. In order to deal with her loneliness, she spent her time writing. But while she was in school, she wrote many plays in which her classmates performed. Paterson's first language was Chinese, and she initially experienced difficulty reading and writing English. She overcame these challenges and in 1954 graduated with honors from King College in Bristol, Tennessee, where she earned a degree in English. She then spent a year teaching at an elementary school in Virginia before enrolling at the Presbyterian School of Christian Education for graduate school. There she studied Bible and Christian education. Upon completion of her master's degree, Paterson had hoped to become a missionary in China, but its borders were closed to Western citizens. With the support of a Japanese friend, she decided to go to Japan instead. Paterson worked as a missionary and Christian education assistant. While in Japan, Paterson studied both Japanese and Chinese culture, of which has influenced much of her writing. Paterson began her professional career in the Presbyterian Church by teaching Sunday school to 5th and 6th grade parochial students. In 1966, she wrote her first novel, Who Am I? She continued to write, but she was unable to get any more of her novels published. After being persuaded, Paterson took an adult education course in creative writing. Her first children's novel, The Sign of the Chrysanthemum, was published in 1973. It is about a Japanese fairy tale and based on Paterson's studies in Japan. Following in 1977, her most widely recognized book, Brace to Terabithia, was published. Terabithia was highly controversial due to some of the difficult content in the story. The novel's content has been the frequent target of censorship. Even though it has been a very controversial book, it is number 8 on the American Library Association list of the 100 most frequently challenged books for the decade of 1990 to 2000. The Brace to Terabithia is studied in English classes in Australia, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States. It has also been adapted for television and the big screen twice. Once for a 1985 PBS TV movie, and then for a 2007 Disney Walden Media feature film. In Paterson's novels, her youthful protagonists face crises in which they learn to triumph through self-sacrifice. Paterson, unlike many other authors of young adult novels and children's books, undertakes themes that are often considered to be of an adult nature, such as death and jealousy. Although her characters face dire situations, Paterson writes with compassion and understanding. Within her writing of misery and conflict, Paterson connects her writing to cynical intelligence and understated humor. After facing difficult situations and events, her characters overcome their hardships by redeeming themselves and reaching their ambitions. Paterson's protagonists are usually orphan or estranged children who may only have a few friends and must face difficult situations on their own. It is believed that Paterson's plots may reflect her own childhood, in which she felt alienated and lonely. Even though some of her other books feature difficult themes, such as the death of a loved one or jealousy, she captivates audiences of all ages. She mainly focuses on writing historical fiction. Miss Paterson shares her experiences growing up as a daughter of missionaries in China, giving her the emotional themes and personal memoirs that she adds to the characters in her books. This has led to her earning the title of National Ambassador for Young People's Literature by the Library of Congress and the Children's Book Council. Katherine Paterson has won many awards, such as the Newbery Medal in 1977 for the Bridge to Terabithia. It is about a fifth grade boy named Jess whose greatest ambition is to be the fastest runner in his class. But on the first day of school, a new girl, Leslie, crosses over to the boys' side of the playground and outruns everyone. Jess and Leslie Burke become best friends. Leslie teaches Jess what it is to have an imagination. Together they create Terabithia, a magical kingdom in the woods where they reign as king and queen. Then one morning a terrible tragedy strikes. Only when Jess is able to come to accept this tragedy does he finally understand the strength and courage Leslie has given him. In The Bridge to Terabithia, one of the producers and screenwriters for the 2007 version is Paterson's son, David L. Paterson, whose name appears on the dedication page of the novel. Also, in 1981, Paterson receives her second Newbery Medal for Jacob Have I Loved, a story about a young girl named Sarah who lives in an old house with a senile grandmother, a caring mother, a sister, and a fisherman father. She struggles to find herself to get away from the shadow of her sister Caroline, but she also comes to understand that much of her unhappiness was brought on by herself, not by Caroline. She finally finds her joy and happiness in herself by moving to a small town. Paterson's awards also include the National Book Award in 1976 for The Master Puppeteer, about a man named Sabura, a thief who robs the rich and helps the poor, and in 1979 for The Great EDLI Hopkins, about an orphan little girl and her struggles to survive. Paterson has also received the Scott Odell Award for Historical Fiction in 1996 for Jip, his story, about a young man who was mistaken as white but was really a slave that was abandoned by his mother on the side of the road in order for him to live as a person and not as a slave. Additionally, Ms. Paterson won the Hans Christian Andersen Medal in 1998 for her writing and the Astrid Lindgren Memorial Award in 2006 for Lifetime Achievement in Literature. In 1988, she earned a Regina Medal by the Catholic Library Association, and in 1987, a Children's Literature Award by Keene State College. Other awards include the Phoenix Award, the Anne Vizaro Award for Young Readers Literature, a Newbery Honor, and the National Book Award for Children's Book. The list continues, where she has received many other awards and nominations. Some of Paterson's other books include The Wide Awake Princess, The Tale of Mandarin Ducks, The Angel and the Donkey, Blueberries for the Queen, The King's Equal, The Smallest Cow in the World, The Field of the Dogs, Marvin Went to Many, and The Light of the World. And these are just to name a few. Katherine Paterson has written young adult novels, to children's literature, to picture storybooks. Even though she claims to be slowing down, she continues to write. Katherine Paterson is currently serving as Vice President of the National Children's Book and Literacy Alliance, of which is a non-profit organization that advocates for literacy, literature, and libraries. The Patersons continue to live in Vermont. They have 4 children and 7 grandchildren, of which are now adults. Katherine Paterson is now 80 years old and still does school visits, but chooses to only visit schools that are close to her Vermont home. She is currently promoting her work and just put out a new book entitled Bread and Roses 2, inspired by a photograph of 35 children taken on the steps of the old Socialist Labor Hall in Bar, Vermont. One of her other novels, The Great EDLI Hopkins, was released as a motion picture in early 2009. People are always asking her, when did she first know that she wanted to become a writer? She states that she never wanted to be a writer, at least not when she was a child or even a young lady. Today, her desire is to continue to be one of the best young adult and children's book writers. But she never forgets that when she was 10, all she wanted was to be either a movie star or a missionary, and when she was 20, all she wanted was to get married and have lots of children.